Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Mike here at Gamefromscratch, and the ongoing battle between Apple and Epic Games just took a major turn today. A huge win for Epic Games, and possibly criminal charges for Apple. Yeah, so hell of a story here. First, to build a bit of a backstory here, Epic Games, they added the ability to buy V-Bucks directly inside of Fortnite back in 2020, and immediately got pulled from the store. That was kind of the intention. They intended to start this process off. Now, I don't know if you could give them a time machine if they would go back in time and do the same thing again, because this has been very costly for Epic Games. But basically, they launched a lawsuit after Fortnite was pulled against Apple, basically claiming that Apple was a monopoly. And of course, Apple countersued. They also revoked keys that would make it impossible to develop Unreal Engine for Mac. That was ultimately walked back almost right away. So we had this lawsuit back and forth, and some pretty nasty words for each other ongoing in this battle. So it was definitely a fight that was picked on purpose, counterpunched on purpose, and then ultimately early on, not really early on, but in 2023, it effectively ended. And for the most part, Apple won. They were not found to be a monopoly, although there is an irony there. We'll get to it in just a few moments. And for the most part, on 9 out of 10 counts, they won. However, on one major count, they very much lost. And that was here. The decision concludes that the first part of the battle between the two companies over Apple's App Store policies and whether they stifle competition, Apple won 9 of 10 counts, but was found to engage in anti-competitive conduct under California law and will be forced to change its App Store policies and loosens its grip over in-app purchases. This injunction will come into effect in December. In some ways, this was the golden gem, the crown jewel that Epic Games were going after, because this means that they can't stop people from using alternative payment mechanisms, is what the court ruled. So the court concludes that Apple's anti-steering provisions hide critical information from consumers and illegally stifle consumer choice. When coupled with Apple's insipid antitrust violations, these anti-steering provisions are anti-competitive, and nationwide remedy to eliminate these provisions is warranted. So that was the one win out of 10 that Epic Games got here. So then Apple did the most Apple thing ever. And basically, they did something called malicious compliance. So they took the ruling from the judge and they went, okay. And so instead of actually just doing what the judge said, they reinterpreted it and basically started charging a 27% fee on all in-app purchases made through external payment platforms. So let's say you, instead of using and paying for the 30% app fee you would have to pay if you use their in-app purchase system, instead they show you a scary warning saying, we're directing you to a external third party and then going to charge 27% anyways, basically making the entire thing moot. Now, the funny thing is, there was actually reporting going around that Apple actually knew that this was going to be in violation of the rule. Like, Apple executives knew that this was in violation of at least the spirit of the judge's ruling, but that didn't stop them. So again, termed as bad faith compliance, and Tim Sweeney said that the 27% fee of an anti-competitive new tax, and said Apple would contest the matter in court. So there's where we were at for this one. So quick summary. Epic Games sued Apple over their App Store. Apple countersued Epic Games. Apple pretty much won, except for on that 30% App Store fee. They had to be forced to allow third-party vendors to make payments on their platform. So instead, what they did is threw a 27% fee on top of that. All right, so here we are in court about that. And this just came out today, and this is a doozy. So Apple can no longer collect fees on purchases made outside the App Store in the US, courts rule. By the way, this already happened in Europe, so they were found guilty and had to open up the App Store. So I think you can get Fortnite now on Apple devices on their third-party store. There's even an Epic Games Store now on Apple devices in Europe. So this is US only, but US is a pretty major market, so obviously quite important. So Apple has claimed victory in its legal battle against Apple after a U.S. court enforced an injunction which prohibits the tech giant from collecting fees on app purchases made outside its App Store. In addition, Apple is no longer allowed to stop developers from encouraging U.S.-based users to make payments via alternative methods, like web transactions, that circumvent its ecosystem. By the way, this is also going to be a boon for like Spotify, Netflix, Prime, you name it. The ruling is effective immediately. As a result, Fortnite will return to the App Store in the US next week. The court enjoined Apple from implementing its new anti-competitive acts to avoid compliance with the injunction. Read the order. Effective immediately, Apple will no longer impede developers' ability to communicate with users, nor will they levy or impose a new commission on an app on off app, that's hard to say, purchases. So again, this other part here is this impede developers' ability to communicate. They actually had some really scary warning text to say, like, you're leaving our ecosystem and you could die. So they're no longer allowed to threaten their users in that regard. So the full ruling by the Northern District of California Court also refers Apple and its Vice President of Finance, Alex Roman, to the local U.S. attorney for investigation regarding criminal contempt. So yeah, not only did Apple lose today, Apple is being referred, and specifically Apple's Vice President of Finance, Alex Roman, for criminal contempt. So regarding Roman, specifically, the order states he outright lied under oath. So definitely not a good day for Apple, and a very not good day for Alex Roman. So the original injunction was ordered following a trial between Epic and blah, blah, blah. This is basically just going through everything that we just talked about coming in here. And yeah, the funny thing is, and I don't know if this is a troll or this is serious, but Tim Sweeney pitched a larger compromise on Twitter. Epic puts forth a peace proposal. If Apple extends the court's friction-free Apple tax-free framework worldwide, we will return Fortnite to the App Store worldwide and drop current and future litigations on the topic. And again, another part, last month, Apple was fined $568 million by the EU for deterring third-party payment methods that circumvent the App Store. So they've definitely been taking L's in Europe, but Europe has much stronger customer laws than there are in North America for the most part. And the weird thing is, I'm in Canada and I have no idea what the law is here. I think we've just kind of followed the US lead because I'm not actually sure. I don't have an iPhone and I don't play Fortnite, so I've never really watched it that closely other than covering it this way. But yeah, they definitely took a bunch of losses in the European courts, but today this is a massive, massive loss in U.S. court. Now, of course, Apple are going to appeal it, so the saga will continue. Although maybe they'll go this route and take the olive branch. I highly doubt it, but the option is there. By the way, if you're interested, the full ruling is available here, all 80 pages of it in legalese. I'm not going to go through it. Although, interestingly enough, you'll see there are a fair amount of redactions in here still. But as I mentioned earlier on, it does apply to other people too, like Disney and Netflix and so on. But yeah, the ruling here, and poor Roman here, who's potentially up on criminal contempt charges, is available if you are interested in learning that one. Also, another L that was recently taken by Apple, and this is, again, kind of ironic because if we go all the way back to here, and what Apple kind of said in their lawsuit about Epic Games said in their lawsuit about Apple being a monopoly. Well, the DOJ decided to launch an antitrust lawsuit against Apple back in 2024. Whole announcement here, it's basically saying that they have a monopoly share in their market and so on. So this was pretty much exactly what Epic Games were actually talking about. They actually went further, saying that iMessage is also monopoly and so on, so that this investigation is going on as well. Now, we've had a regime change in the U.S., so I have no idea if this is still going forward. It's weird how the law seems to change under new presidents down there, but that is the case. So yeah, that is another thing that is going on versus Apple right now. But the big thing here is definitely this ruling right here, and it's pretty massive. So if you are a game developer publishing into the Apple ecosystem, that 30% fee may start becoming a bit of a relic of the past, and alternative app stores like the Epic Games Marketplace may actually become viable. Let me know what you think. Comments down below. I'll talk to you all later. Goodbye.